Get up, let me begin. This is 𝗬𝗎𝗎. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is 𝗬𝗎𝗎. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of State of the Jungle with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, the sickly Malik Wright, joined by my co-hosts as always, Daniel Alameda, Logan Fulmer, and Evan McPhillips. We have a jam-packed show, a lot of stuff to get into, but before we do us a huge favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live. Boys, like every other week, it feels like at this point, the Bengals lost. Bengals lost to the New York Football Jets in a stunning fashion, because the Bengals were up once upon a time, 31-16. They somehow squandered that lead. We're going to get into all that. We want you guys to drop your questions, your comments down in the comment section. And as always, when we do this show, bring your popcorn, because there's going to be a lot of stuff to discuss. There's a huge debate going on Bengals Twitter right now, which is who's to blame? Is it Duke Tobin? Is it Zach Taylor? And to be quite honest with you, maybe this is just the power of social media. I don't know if I've ever seen the words or the name Duke Tobin uttered this much in Cincinnati. I've never seen Duke Tobin under this much fire, not just from Cincinnatians, but also from national media. People are talking about him. So how could a guy who doesn't play football, you only hear from maybe once, maybe twice a year, why is his name ringing bells? While the Bengals are prime in season? Could it be because of the product of drafting or lack thereof, or maybe the product of signing or lack thereof is now taking its true final form, which is this Bengals defense? Maybe people realize 𝗦𝗡𝗎𝗪 was not the issue, the same way people are realizing maybe Al Golden is not the issue, albeit even though he loves to drop defensive ends into coverage as if they are defensive backs. Maybe they're realizing that there is a bigger issue at hand. And we're going to get into that. But as we do every single show, I want to get the takeaways from the Bengals versus Jets game. So with that being said, Evan, start us off.
Yeah. Good start. If we could have stopped the count, like halfway through the third quarter, that might have been better. I understand the fans who are in a place where they say, hey, yeah, this team sucks, and this is probably going to be a disappointing season, but I love the Bengals, and I love being around my friends and having a good time at the stadium and watching the game and cheering on the players. And that's who I'm going to be, and that's going to bring me joy and make me happy. Great. The people who are like, all you haters taking victory laps after the Bengals lose a game, like this, and we're just this close to making a run, and I still have hope. What the fuck are you on? Because to treat this loss like it is just any other loss. Oh, guys, it was just a loss. You're on to next week. This was the fucking Jets, the 0-7 Jets, with arguably the worst quarterback in the league, who could not throw the ball, who just got called out by his owner, who would have otherwise been benched if how old is Tyrod now? 36? Mm-hmm. If the other 36-something-year-old quarterback wouldn't have been hurt, would have been riding the bench. You're missing their best offensive player and their best defensive player, and you still couldn't beat them at home in a game you were up multiple scores. And look, offense, yeah, 100%. You guys scored a lot of points, but the unfortunate thing is you don't just get to score a lot of points and then just say, hey, that should be good enough, and we get to kind of check out, or like we can't find answers, or we're going to clam up and we can't be dependent upon, because guess what? You're supposed to have this team built through the offense. That's where the responsibility lies. When the Cowboys have to go score 40 to go win the game, they're not like, man, like we scored 35, we scored 32. Shouldn't that be enough? Shouldn't the defense do something? No, they just go out there and push the fucking pedal to the metal. I hate treating this loss like it is just any other loss, like it was a 3 or a 6 point loss to the Steelers or the Ravens in a close game on the road or something. That's not what this was. This was a monumental failure, largely on the defense. DJ Turner, you're excluded. Everyone else, you can't cover. Linebackers, defensive backs. You can't tackle. Defensive linemen, linebackers, DBs, all of them. You can't rush the passer. Every single person who rushed the passer, except for, I think, Demetrius Knight had one attempt. Cam Taylor-Britt had 2 attempts, and Demetrius Knight had 4. They were the only ones who had a win rate of over 10. Oh, Geno Stone had 1. There we go. He had 1 pressure on 1. If your D-line is getting under a 10% pressure rate, that is the bottom quarter of any position group you're talking about. Defensive end, defensive tackle. You're the worst of the worst. So you can't tackle, you can't cover, you can't rush the passer against one of the worst offensive lines in football right now. And then even worse, you can't get lined up properly. What? 8 weeks into the season? You can't line up properly? You're still getting organized and trying to figure out, and you got to have Logan Wilson, who you just benched, walk your rookies around that are supposed to be replacing him, putting him in the right spot. It's just, you want to even say details, but it's basics. I mean, get the tackling donut out and just start chasing, because you can't even tackle right. The angles that some of these defensive backs and linebackers are taking. Who do you think you are? You're not Flash Gordon. Your angle is way too steep, man. Flatten that out. Get out in front of him. Okay, he gets an extra 2, 3, 4 yards, but you guys are giving up an extra 15 with the angles you're taking. It is just infuriating to have this kind of performance, to have people minimizing this loss, because it is just the perfect encapsulation of so much that is wrong, because it is the Bengals' free agent acquisitions, or lack thereof, for the defense. You added TJ Slayton and nothing to this defense that desperately needed something. Sorry, Mike Pennell, but look how that worked out, right? McKinley Jackson is inactive. Chris Jenkins, look, I like the pick coming out, but guys, like eventually Miles Murphy, Chris Jenkins, Shamar Stewart, we're going to have to learn our freaking lesson to stop drafting pass rushers that aren't good pass rushers and hoping that they become good pass rushers, because there's nothing in the last 10 years of Bengals history that tells me that you can take somebody who's not a good pass rusher and make them one. The only successful picks, quote unquote, if I'm being very generous, are Carl Lawson, Sam Hubbard, and maybe Joseph Osai, if you want to call that a hit for what, a third rounder? I struggle, because it's just, we didn't do enough in free agency to address the holes in the defense. And we've been doing really poor in our drafting because we've been taking these project players and saying, I know we haven't done anything, but we got it this time. We got it this time. This is our guy. Or just drafting guys 2 rounds ahead of where they're supposed to go. You see the problems with all of this, and that all goes in to making a performance as horrid as you saw versus the Jets. I don't want people to look away from this game. I don't want them to shut their eyes and move on to next week and just absolutely give up, because I don't want them to be blind to the problems that are plaguing this team, because that's how you just run it back next year. Even if some minor changes happen, how can you feel without a drastic change in strategy and how this team is being built, that you should have any confidence in their ability to put a competitive team on the field going forward? That's where my mind is right now after that Jets-Bills game, or Jets-Bengals game, excuse me.
It's just kind of insane, that our last 2 shows are about the total opposites of each other, coming off of a ridiculous high against the Steelers. Now it's not much lower than coming off of a loss to the Jets. And obviously, people say win's a win, a loss is a loss, but that'll necessarily never be true. Some losses, some wins mean more than the others. And this is certainly one of them losses that causes everybody to feel like this. Causes everything Evan just said. Like, there are so many problems with it. And losses like this can be useful if you allow yourself to sit back and it unveils all these things that we've been talking about, and it shows the importance of all the things everybody's been preaching, and it shows and emphasizes all the layers of issues and all the layers of things that we just continue to ignore. That's the only positive that can come from this, and that could be a massive positive in the long run. But it's a shame we have to sit up here and talk about losses like that changing the trajectory of our franchise, because we just lost to one of the worst offenses and football teams in the NFL. Like, just a completely incompetent football team just walked in here and scored 40 points. Like, that alone is embarrassing. Like, Justin Fields has been nothing but a horrendous quarterback throughout his entire NFL career and just scored 40 points on you. This is the only career game he's played in the NFL where he scored more than 24 points.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many. Just when you continue to look at it, it just gets more and more and more and more and more and more embarrassing, and it sucks. It sucks to be on the other end of it. There are so many things that need to change, but I'm sure the Bengals will go out and find a way to beat the Bears somehow, and then half the people will be like, "Well, who cares about this one embarrassing loss that we just had to everybody?" And that's the problem with things, is that you're letting the overall outlook of things just be affected by wins and losses and the records. And, I know your record is what it is, but you have to, if you're going to continue to be oblivious to the major things, then we will continue to be in the spot that we continue to be in. So something's going to have to change eventually. I hope a loss to one of the worst offenses the NFL has ever assembled on Sunday is that turning point for them. And if it's not, then I don't know what ever will be. I really don't.
Yeah. Something else I wanted to bring up real quick that was on my mind was, like, we've seen multiple games now where, like, teams will take away Ja'Marr and Ja'Marr especially, because after 15 targets, generally you try and make them go elsewhere, right? How bad? So, like, the utter lack of production that you've gotten from guys like Yoshi, who've had multiple drops on big time plays, right? Who can't separate, who just are not getting better at any of the finer details. I loved the athletic project of him, but, like, he hasn't gotten significantly better at any of the catching, the route running, the separating, and those are kind of important in being a receiver. But my overall point, I don't want to harp too bad on Yoshi there, but, like, we know the production you've gotten from him, right? We know the lack of production you've had from your interior, from your pass rush, from your run stopping, from your tackling, all of this. How bad? Either the coaching staff is terrible at evaluating their own personnel, or we need to be asking ourselves, how bad is McKinley Jackson that he can't even be active for game day?
Mm-hmm.
What is Jermaine Burton doing so badly right now that he can't even be active on game day? What is Mitch Chinsley doing that has him so far out of favor that he can't even get snaps on the field? Because at what point is the performance so terrible that you say, we just have to try somebody else? Because our jobs are on the line. We're on the fringe of being competitive right now. We are literally on our last thread.
That's what frustrates me too. Sorry, is what Evan just said about, like, why, like, these changes aren't happening, or why aren't these, like, how bad?
What are you waiting for?
And the thing that, how was the linebackers the one thing we decided to change? I'm glad some of
the only guy who can line up on defense. You know what I mean?
Like, that's another just insane thought process to me that I cannot wrap my head around. Is there are so many changes that should be made? Why is one that was, like, really not that big of a deal the one that's being made? Like, there's so many things.
There's a lot. And the one thing that is interesting, and I remember watching this, I believe it was the season where Joe Burrow got hurt and Jake Browning was playing, and it was towards the end of the season. I remember at that point they were finally playing Charlie Jones, and they were finally playing these guys, and it was like that was the end of the season. So, right, you're in evaluation mode, but it feels like this organization and the coaching, they don't know how to develop, and they don't know what personnel to play. And I feel like that's been a problem that has plagued them. You can look at the offense, both sides of the ball, but you can especially look at the offense right now to where, hey, whether it's been the tight ends, you look at last year, Mike Gesicki, it took them 6 games to figure out what they had in Mike Gesicki and how to utilize him. Same thing with Noah Fant and throwing Tanner Hudson over him. And same thing with Andre Yoshivas now to where, hey, he's the locked-in guy in the slot. We're only throwing Tinsley out there to block, and that's it. I feel like they get too comfortable with who they have, and that's it. It's the comfortability factor, and I feel like this coaching staff has really hindered themselves. And be honest with you, at 3-5 right now, they ain't got no place to run, and they ain't got no place to hide, and that's the difficult part. We can obviously discuss more and more, but the great teams in the NFL can draft, develop, and retain. This team has not drafted well, they have not developed well, and they have not retained well. And the problem with right now that I look at this team and I say, hey, the players aren't producing at a level you have to. The defensive line looks like trash. So how do you fix that problem right now and going into the future? The Duke Tobin problem, and that question, I believe that is a future question. I don't know if there's a move. Sure, we can talk about Quinn and Williams. We can talk about these guys, go out and trade a second-round pick. But I feel like the Duke Tobin conversation right now, it deserves to have blame. But right now, there's nothing you can do about it. You put yourself in this position. You drafted Myles Murphy. You drafted Chris Jenkins. You drafted McKinley Jackson. You drafted Cam Sample. You drafted these guys. And you're the only person we can look at to say, hey, it is on you because you fired Lou. So you bring in a new defense coordinator and the defensive line still sucks. So there's a lot of intricacies on where the blame should go. But the fact of the matter is the defense right now is a piss poor product. And when I look at this, I believe that this is years in the making. And for me, I think that this team has tried to put Band-Aids and Band-Aids and Band-Aids, and they've gotten bailed out by Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase time and time again. And when Joe Burrow's gone, this is what you get. A coaching staff that isn't great and an organization right now that isn't great. In order to win and be Super Bowl contenders, you have to be great. And I don't feel like this team is great at all right now.
That I just like the minor details, like, again, going back to, like, you need to make adjustments, right? So, like, you get multiple key third downs in the fourth quarter where you see, okay, their go-to when the important plays are happening, bracket T, bracket Jamar. How is your plan to address that on your final drives or your final opportunities to get points? We're going to line them up even wider. Like, they can still be bracketed by the safeties then. Why don't you line them up both on the same side and then they can't both be double teamed? Or why is Yoshi in the slot and T is on the outside? Why don't you have Jamar or T in the slot having the easier matchups in the middle of the field to work with? You got 3 timeouts. Why don't you give them that space? Why don't you give them that two-way go? Why don't you make it harder on them and stress them that way? Like, that's where, again, like, it feels unfair to be like the offense made mistakes and it cost them the game, because it wasn't just that in a vacuum, right? But at the same time, the offense did have multiple opportunities there down the stretch to either A, sustain a drive and kill the clock, or B, get down the field far enough to where Evan McPherson, who can kick it from 55 comfortably, can just go get you some points to help put it out of reach. But you couldn't even do that.
Yep.
And part of that is, hey, Jamar dropped one and, the Jets had a perfect blitz call. But again, the good coaches make those adjustments over the game. You know what they're doing to you. It sucks you don't have Mike Gesicki and you got to rely on Yoshi. Okay. But like I said, switch it up then. Put Jamar in the slot. Bunch him up. Put trips on one side. Hell, put quads on one side and really mess with them and just see what the defense does. Motion somebody after you have them in quads and say, hey, based on that, we'll either call, Chase Brown back in to do a run play, or we'll motion somebody over to the other side, and then they're wide open on the other side, isolated. Like, there's I just walking out there in 11 personnel and being like, we're just going to line up and Yoshi's going to win. And Joe Flacco, who's dealing with an AC joint sprain that he just sustained 20 minutes ago, is going to make a play for us. Like, that's uninspiring is what it is.
You know, what I keep coming back to when we talk about this whole thing is, what the hell are people seeing? What were people seeing in practice, right? What were people seeing in practice? And they're like, oh, these guys have a lot of promise, because you got to think
The defense is stopping the offense.
right, man.
Oh my God.
And John Stewart, appreciate your comment. He says Lou was the problem. Explain to me how he was the problem, because he didn't play young guys. Now the young guys are playing. You know, we're looking at it. We're saying the young guys can't play like that. That is that what you mean by the problem? Because we see they definitely have contents now. They had play. He has players now with the Colts, and he's able to get the most out of them. And they're fielding a takeaway style defense. And again, not every single defense is going to lock teams down for 10 points a game, the whole 9 yards. I get all that. Trust me, I get that completely. But I think that the front office works hand in hand with the product that we've seen on the football field. They've decided to operate with the mentality of, hey, we are going to build our defense through the draft. I did a show on Monday. I did a show on Monday where I talked about the last time the Bengals made a significant signing on the defense side of the ball. Boys, that was back on the 2021 defense.
Trey?
Yeah, literally.
Trey Hendrickson or Trey Waynes?
But not even that. Not even that. Because Trey Waynes came before that, actually. So the 2021 defense, we had Trey Hendrickson, you had 𝗕𝗘𝗦𝗢𝗪, you had 𝗪𝗚𝗚𝗏𝗪, you had this the fleece of a trade for BJ Hill. You were active. And then what happened is you started resting on your laurels. That's what happened. You started resting on your laurels. That's what happened. And, you now relied on a lot of those same players that you went out there and you acquired via that free agency to be building blocks, for the future. And now we're seeing those guys enter into their 30s. Some of them have performed really, really well. If you ask me, there was a little bit of mismanagement there. I thought that there was a way you could have gotten 𝗪𝗚𝗚𝗏𝗪 and BJ Hill both under contract, but you decided to give all the money to BJ Hill. And for right or for wrong, there's a lot that just sort of went into that, a lot of decision makings that happened. And, we talk so much about keeping the roster together, right? You think about just a few years ago, we were like, oh, the Bengals will be back here. This was the worst offensive line Joe Burrow could ever have. And we made it to the Super Bowl. Now we look up and it's like next year, Joe Burrow is going to be 30 years old. And we're still talking about the 2021 Super Bowl. We're still talking about what escaped them or eluded them. So that brings up a nice question, an interesting question. It says, is pressure mounting? Is pressure mounting for the Cincinnati Bengals? Is pressure mounting for Duke Tobin? Is pressure mounting for Zac Taylor? I don't believe pressure. I don't think pressure is mounting too much for Duke Tobin, but I do believe pressure is mounting for a guy in Zac Taylor to get it right. I get the offense is playing as well as you possibly could have imagined right now. There are some things that I personally have an issue with. I don't see what's the obsession with having Tanner Hudson in over Noah Fant. I don't understand that. I don't get that for the life of me. I don't get why Jermaine Burton, I get it. If you say character issues, you have to tell me something completely different. You want to know why? Because character issues were always going to be the thing that held Jermaine Burton back, but you still took him thinking that you could bring him into the culture. So you tell me what that says more and more about your culture. You talk about needing a defensive leader to step up. I'm talking about I need a head coach to step up. These are the things that I feel. These are the things that I believe, but I look at it and I say, you know what? Zac Taylor, right? Zac Taylor, we look at it as the whole right now, is going to be faced with a very tough situation going forward. It's going to be, how do I save my job? How do I save my job? How do I make this organization believe? You got season ticket holders canceling their tickets because ticket prices are being raised. You got people calling for change. What change would make everyone feel rejuvenated? Will it be a change at the head coach, or would it be a change in front office? People say, is Duke Tobin step down? I ask you this. Here's one thing on the floor, because I'm with you guys. We need change. Is that change going to be Duke Tobin steps down to a lesser role, or do you say, Duke Tobin, you're already the director of player personnel, we bring a real general manager? I was talking offline about this with the boys before the show. Any quote unquote general manager that the Bengals were to bring in here, do we believe that Duke Tobin still wouldn't have the ultimate say over that person. As long as Duke Tobin is inside of that building, he is going to have the Brown family's ear. He is closer to Brown. He's the closest thing to Mike Brown. He's family. He's closer than Marvin Lewis was.
Nepotism always works out great for people, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
No better way to get the most qualified people. Just ask any of the Turners that have been offensive coordinators.
Oh yeah,
it always works out great.
And so you ask this question now, what? Right, because we talk all the time about change is needed and what change. Well, what does change look like? What required change is needed, right, in order for the Bengals to, as they'll have you believe with their press releases that they release at the end of every season, change their stripes. What's gonna make fans believe in them? I'll tell you what could. Well, maybe getting a coach in here that has a little bit more say, roster control, player personnel, the whole 9 yards. I just don't know if they'd be willing to do that. I do not know what that would said thing look like. Because here's the thing. As much as I don't think Zac Taylor is the man for the job, and believe me, I don't believe Zac Taylor is the man for the job. I've tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. And that's not a personal shot. That's just me being honest. It's an honest assessment as a person who loves this team, loves this city. I don't believe he's the person for the job, but I do have to ask you this. I think that we need to talk about this. I am fearful of the next hire that this family makes because they have proven to us that they'd go with the less qualified guy in terms of, well, maybe this person will lead us into the future. Maybe this person will be the coach that we're looking for the future. They have proven to us that they don't really know how to hire coaches, just like they've proven to us they don't know how to draft effectively, just like they've proven to us they do not know how to properly scout the free agency market and bring people in here that are actually going to make a difference. So I say all that to say, ideally, respectfully, who are they bringing in here? Who are they bringing in here that is going to make significant change? Cincy KB, if you could correct that for me, if you can. You said, I don't think you're even watching games. If you could just correct that for me, are you referring to me or are you referring to the panel? If you're referring to me, I can assure you I'll watch every single game and I watch it back 3 times. Watch every single game.
Somebody in the chat.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I watch a lot of games, and I know that a lot of people might feel the offense.
I hate watch replays.
well, hear me. I know the offense is doing their part. The offense right now is doing their part, but when you invest as much money into the offense as the Bengals have, wouldn't you expect the offense to do their part? Wouldn't you expect the offense to be a well-oiled machine? They should be scoring 35 a game, how much they've invested into this offense. I say all that to say, when we talk about change, and this is the conversation I want us to switch to about the pressure. Well, what does this change look like for everybody? What change would make everyone feel rejuvenated, make them feel this is a sense of belief and faith that I can have in this team? I'm very curious. Evan, what are your thoughts?
I mean, obviously, there would be no. It would be a seismic shift in the method of operation of the organization if they were to move on from Tobin. That would be the absolute biggest signifier that they could say, "Hey, you've been here for how long now? 30 years in some capacity, not always as shadow GM. It's been a good run. Things got a little stale. This is nothing personally against you. You can still have a role in the organization, in the front office, and whatever else you want to do.
Yeah. But
you're not de facto director, player, personnel, GM, whatever else, right? And obviously that pairs with the coaching staff kind of being, you're going to have to clean up. I mean, like you said, even if you believe that Zac Taylor is a fine league average of that quality head coach, that he can win games with the right team setup, well, then he's the Andy Dalton of head coaches or the Jared Goff of head coaches. Yeah, you can make it to the Super Bowl with this guy, but everything's got to be perfect around him, and that'll never be in Cincinnati. So even if you do believe that Zac Taylor is a good coach, it's going to be a struggle with one hand tied behind your back here in Cincinnati, the way things operate. One thing I wanted to say too, that I meant to say earlier that you kind of reminded me of there when we were talking about the offense, Malik. Offense got to score points, and they did their job, right? But you don't just get to stop scoring points and say, we did our job, we're taking off.
Yeah.
Just the same way that on the days the offense is playing like shit, having, I don't know, 4 fumbles.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the defense go, I quit, I'm not coming back out on the field? The offense hasn't done enough.
Yeah.
Like, we've done enough. We held them to, 14 points, 17 points. No, the defense got to go back out there and play their ass off to try and save the offense from a terrible day and still win the game. So, like, I hear the argument of, like, hey, the offense put up a lot of points, but, like, the same way the defense doesn't get to check out when the score is 13-10 in the nasty AFC North game and say, guys, we've held them to 10 points at this point. Like, you guys got to do something. We've done enough. You don't get to do that. You got to play. It's a team game. And when one part of your team is not doing as well, the other part's got to step up. That's what makes you a team, that you all have each other's backs. So it can't be, we did enough that we're absolved of all responsibility and we can just check out. That's never what it is until the game's over.
And one thing I just want to, before I get to give it to Daniel and Logan here, I want to shape this up to make it make sense for a lot of folks, because I've had people tell me, well, Malik, how could you say get rid of Zac Taylor? The offense is doing well. I've actually had DMs where people have said this to me. So I'll put it this way: imagine your job is the manager. You're the manager of the produce section, the meat section of a grocery store, right? And your sales have been steady. Your sales have been consistent. You've done well, right? And then they say, you know what? The store manager, the general store manager, who's the manager of the entire store. That means the meat section, right? The produce section, the seafood section, the entire overall sales of the store. They say, you know what? We want to promote from within. We're going to promote this guy, right? Because you've shown us that you can lead a team, and we want to keep a familiar face around. So you know what? We're going to hire you. So they hire this guy. He's now the store manager. His job is to now promote a person that's in charge of the meat section, the produce section, and make sure they get good results. Well, at the end of the year, right, corporate comes in, district comes in, and they say, your sales are down. He can't then go to corporate and say, what? But the meat section, our sales are up at an all-time high. Or the produce section, our sales are up at the overall store is what you're responsible for. That also includes the sections that are doing poorly. And if those sections aren't performing the way that they should, well, they probably got to bring in somebody that could probably manage effectively the entire store. Does that make sense? Because that's what we're dealing with right now. The store manager can't say, well, you know what? Guys, I know we're struggling. I need somebody from the meat section to step up. Because guess what? The district isn't going to come in and say, you know what? We're going to get rid of the meat section guy, the produce section guy. You know what they're going to say? We're going to get rid of the guy that's in charge of the entire thing. Because you sign off on how good the store does. You speak for the store. That's the tough part about delegation. Right? When things are shitty, you still have to have your hand in stuff.
That's being in charge.
That's being in charge. If things are not doing well, I run a sports company. If people aren't doing their jobs, chances are I might have to stick my feet in and start doing more stuff until it gets to where it's supposed to be. That's the part that's tough. So you might be good at what you do, but are you actually truly good at what you do if you can't uplift that section that's struggling? Logan, what say you?
Man, I think for me, if I'm looking to get the most out of something, I think you just have to fire Zac Taylor. I think that's the first place you have to start. I think we've talked about it numerous times on the show, but messages just grow stale eventually. They just grow stale eventually. That doesn't mean they're bad messages. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they're not good messages. That doesn't mean they're not like he's saying the right things, but things just get old. That's just part of life. That's just how
Peak
things
zero.
are. Yeah, like that's just it is what it is, you know. And I think it's probably a combination of both things. I'm sure it's getting old. I'm sure it's not great, but regardless, they need a new identity. They need some new flair. They need whatever it is. They just need a different vibe from that.
They need Logan Fulmer as the head coach.
from that specific person. But after that, it obviously just cannot stop there. I think the next biggest thing that needs to happen is just a different change in the drafting philosophy and information gathering stage. I think we might have hired 1 or 2 more scouts at the end of the process last time. But still, like, you need more. We need to do more things. We keep talking about all these draft picks and all these things. It's because Evan kind of alluded to it earlier. We're drafting people and expecting them to be players that they never were. You can draft these guys that, you know, should be good, like, and could be good and have the traits to do this and that. But if they've never done it, why do you think that you're going to be the person to be able to make them do it? You know, and sometimes that works for some teams, but sometimes it's just not that easy. And yes, you would like to think your coaches can turn that, but like, you know, again, a guy like Myles Murphy, if Myles Murphy was going to be like, if he was going to hit, he was going to be a high-end Sam Hubbard-like player. He was never going to be a dominant pass rusher. He was going to be a great run defender that you can leave on the field from a down-to-down basis. That's what the expectations, like, that's the kind of player he was. And yes, we're all disappointed he can't rush a passer at all right now, but he was never going to be some superstar pass rusher.
Especially year one.
Exactly. And same thing like with Shamar Stewart. He's obviously banged up, missed a lot of time. Like, things are going to take time, but you can't just expect things out of players that they've never shown you. And that doesn't mean you can't expect it to get better. That doesn't mean you can't expect them to be an average player or an average in this area or show growth in this and that. But you're drafting too many people. You're doing too many things in the draft that don't make sense.
You mean to tell me TJ Slayton can't be DJ Reader?
Like, dude, and TJ Slayton's been relatively fine. That sucks for him, but like, it's just, yeah. Like,
wait, Geno Stone can't be Jesse Bates?
Exactly.
Like, Nick Scott can't be Jesse Bates?
They ask so much of people that they set unrealistic goals for so many people. They set unfair goals for so many people, and that is not good for these players. I love Trey, but he clearly needs some help, and we're not doing. There's nothing that we've done to signify.
You know the biggest help they can give Trey, guys. It's very simple. The same thing that has eluded them, that they've been trying to do the last few years, and they just have not been able to do it for right or for wrong, because they choose, you know what, they believe that every draft pick that they love, and this is because they tell people in back channels at the combine, oh yeah, that happened. Oh, we really love this player. Oh, if he is there, we're going to draft him. Why? Don't put your nuts on the table and say we're going to go out there and we're going to trade up and get the player that we like. Or we should.
Crazy how players go right in front of where they want to go all the time.
It's like, well, we really loved Byron Murphy snatch. If Byron Murphy, they tell everybody, if Byron Murphy's there, he's the pick. Okay.
How did Frank Ragnow get picked in front of us?
Right. Wait, what do you mean? Oh, I'm not done yet. If Walter Nolan's there,
I was about to say
he's going to be the
Nolan.
Pick.
Yeah,
Byron Murphy.
Byron Murphy. Yeah, you say all these guys, if they're there, you're going to pick them, and then they elude you. The Bengals have been. It's the worst kept secret. The Bengals have been searching for defensive tackle help, but not just defensive tackle help. They've been searching for an elite premier 3 tech. They've been searching for that for quite some time. And guess what? Haven't been able to find it. They keep saying we're going to target this person, we're going to target that person. How about you go up and actually be aggressive for it? If there's a player you love, you do it. No matter what people think about where you drafted and when you drafted them. If it's your guy and it's a person you're sold on, you do that. Daniel, what say you?
Yeah, I think stay on that topic. You look at 3 teams I'll point out right now that I think are the class of the NFL in certain aspects. You talked about the draft. I think the Detroit Lions right now are the class of the NFL when we talk about being aligned from a coaching standpoint to the organization to actually playing the players. You said if there's a player you like, you go up and get them. Jahmyr Gibbs, everybody was ridiculing them, saying, hey, in the first round, no way in hell you go out there and take Jahmyr Gibbs. It's panned out pretty well for them. Same thing. You go out and you look at their linebacking core. I'm blanking on his name, Jack Campbell, one of the best linebackers in the NFL so far through his young career. They went up and they drafted him probably a little bit higher than people expected. They went up, they traded for their wide receiver, Isaac Tisla. Obviously, he hasn't been great, but they're going out getting these guys. Brian Branch, you're going out and getting these guys. And
be careful, Daniel. I don't want to encourage the Bengals to start trading assets to go up and overreach on their guys.
Well, what I'm saying, though, is they're going up and not only trading up for the guys, but they're getting these guys with a specific plan in
Yes.
mind, and that's what the Bengals aren't doing. So the Lions, from a drafting standpoint, I look at another team, the Philadelphia Eagles. If you're not going to draft guys, while they have drafted excellent, that's a team that goes out in free agency and in the offseason and replenishes their guys. This offseason, they lost a lot. They lost a lot, but they're making trades. They're making moves because they realize the holes that they have. And that's the problem I have with the Bengals. Right now, I see a lot of conversation about Demetrius Knight, and I understand our thoughts on Demetrius Knight. I understand he hasn't played the best. One of my problems with the Bengals, and this is the position they put themselves in, Demetrius Knight played 10 snaps on the defensive line his entire college career. How much has he played on the defensive line this year? And I understand it's a different scheme, but this is a 245-pound linebacker you're getting blown up by Armand Membu, first-round offensive tackle. You're playing him 100 snaps on the defensive line so far this season. I just think you're putting guys in a position that they aren't going to succeed, not because it's Al Golden's fault necessarily, but what the hell else are you doing? Who else do you have to put out there? And that's where we can place some of the blame on the Duke Tobin. So going back to the question on who has more pressure, for sure it's Zac Taylor, just because I think you nailed it best. Duke's probably safe. And Zac Taylor, when you look at the names of head coaches that are extremely long tenured, Mike LaFleur has been head coach since 2019. He's made the playoffs 5 times. Kyle Shanahan's made the playoffs 4 times. Sean McDermott has made the playoffs 7 times. Zac Taylor has made the playoffs twice. And if they don't make the playoffs this season, I see no world where you can realistically keep Zac Taylor. And that's where I believe the pressure is on him. And for right or for wrong, Joe Burrow's not here. Oh, cry me a river, Zac Taylor. I'm sorry. You got to do, and you have to win with the talent you have on your team. And I hate to say it, but right now at 3-5, there is no world where he survives with the Bengals head coach if they don't make the playoffs this year. And that's why I believe for sure that the pressure is on him. So I don't know necessarily if they can save this season, but he's got to try his best, because I don't believe Quinnen Williams is walking into the building anytime soon. So man, it's the pressure's on Zac Taylor for sure.
Logan, Evan, anything you guys want to add?
I think in general, I think that just for this specific question, again, it goes back to Zac being first, just because he's a more immediate fix than one. Like, they're not going to fire Duke until they have another coaching change. I don't think. But again, like I said earlier, I'd fire Zac, get a new message, get a different vibe, brand of football, and find a different way to attack the draft, man. Whether it's just add more resources to draft different players, draft collegiate production, and not just some athletic testing or guys you like. Like, just, you got to find a better – you have to just do something different. The Bengals refuse to try different things, and that's where everything gets old so much faster, because they just expect different results from the same process.
And one last thing on the head coaching thing, I understand, right? Like, if they were to go out and get a new head coach, a guy that is inexperienced, that's probably not the path I want to go down. But respectfully, whoever is the next head coach, yes, you do have one arm tied behind your back, but you also have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And that's where a lot of these other teams, you look at the Dolphins, you look at all these other teams that need new head coaches, you look at what these new teams have done and quick turnarounds. I don't think a new head coach comes in here and has so much that they have to change and they have to do so much, like a complete overhaul of this team. You got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and to be honest with you, that is a solid enough floor to where, hey, that is an 8-win floor, in my opinion. And you just got to get 1 or 2 extra wins. I do believe a new head coach could potentially do that. So,
but who? But who? Somebody asked us in the comment section. They said, if you guys were in charge, I'm trying to find the comment. It was a very good comment. They said, if you guys were in charge, what would be basically some of the first few moves you guys would make?
Can I tell you
that
the
would
first
give
move
us
I'd
that
make real
would that
quick?
would
It's
that would give us
super easy.
They said that would give us a huge starting point to maybe some faith in the future.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. You don't even need to fire Duke Tobin. You can just promise me that Duke Tobin will spend the $10 to get a subscription to get the consensus draft mock board and draft only based on that. And Spoiler alert, we'll obviously have a bye week for the Bengals coming up, but for Know Thy Enemy, for that segment, we might take a look at what Bengals draft classes might have looked like if they would have drafted according to consensus boards instead of going to Bengals boards, and what that might look like, because there is wisdom in the crowd, so to speak. So yeah, if you could guarantee me that, I would feel a lot better about the draft. I'd be thrilled. I'd be so excited for the draft.
Well, let's do this exercise this way, just rather than for the sake of time and making sure we stay on task here. I'll just be the mediator. I would say I'm going to ask a couple questions, and I want the panel's thoughts on this. Hell, I'll even ask Jimmy's thoughts on this. So I want you guys to say yes or no. If it's no, tell me why. Okay. First, we're in charge of fixing the Cincinnati Bengals, right?
No.
Pass. Would you
double it and give it to the next person?
Would you move on from Zach Taylor after the season?
Yes.
Okay. So Zach Taylor's gone. Is there anybody on this coaching staff you'd keep? That means including Darren Simmons, or would you gut this entire thing, bring in new faces?
I like Darren Simmons.
Okay.
I think depending on who, like head coaching wise, if I brought in a defensive minded head coach, I wouldn't be opposed to keeping Dan Pitchard
or Cragthorpe.
Yeah,
Cragthorpe's been very
but
involved.
That's a specific situation,
right?
In general, I would prefer a clean slate. But if we are going to go with a heavy defense-minded culture building leader,
right, maintain a little bit of offensive stability,
I like the idea of maybe possibly keeping an offensive guy or two.
Okay,
as like a passing game coordinator, run game coordinator, offensive analyst, wide receiver coach, etc.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, outside of Darren Simmons, Dan Pitcher's the longest tenured on this coaching staff, anyway. So, right, and that's kind of crazy to even think about. He's been here since the Marvin Lewis days.
Yeah.
Let's ask this: Who is the next head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, and why? I'm going to start with Daniel, then I'm going to go to Evan, then I'm going to go to Logan, and we're going to have reached a consensus on who the next head coach should be. Daniel.
Oh Lord.
On the spot,
I've got. Oh man.
Come on, there's got to be somebody out there that we're all itching for.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I just don't know who exactly I want to go with.
While you marinate on this real quick.
Hold on. Because I feel like he's about to say it.
Oh no, I mean I don't know exactly.
Okay.
I've got three guys.
While you guys marinate on this, because Malik caught you off guard.
As I always do.
I think it was DJ Reader who tweeted and I think he was probably talking more about college, where he's like, fans are clamoring for these guys to be fired, but like, who are you going to replace them with? I mean, isn't that how new coaches come up?
Right.
Like the coach for, is it UCLA? With the crazy slick back. No one knew who this guy was.
Oh, he's the offensive coordinator.
But now he's snapping, and it's like, that's how you get new head coaches, right? Like, was anybody looking at Iowa State in the last couple of years and being like, yeah, no, we need to go get those guys? It's like, or who's the Minnesota head coach? I'm showing my lack of college football knowledge. I know that they're
Minnesota, you said?
Yeah.
PJ Fleck?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, but that's the thing, is no one, when Minnesota hires PJ Fleck, is going, oh yeah, this is a home run hire. After a year or two, they're like, oh shit, this is a really good hire. Indiana's head coach, when they brought in, no one was like, damn, they stole this guy from LSU and Ohio State and USC. We're all no, like, and that's the thing, is like, you're inherently getting unproven head coaches, because if there are any veterans, they're like Wade Phillips or John Fox. They're the older guys you bring in for stability to complement a younger guy, because they've already had, 1, 2, 3 opportunities. And there's reasons why people are not engaging them as head coaching candidates, and why they're available, even though they're experienced. So like, I know a lot of names are going to feel uncomfortable, but that is just inherently the risk in hiring a head coach,
right?
Because that's what comes along with it. Either you hire a guy who hasn't been able to accomplish that, who has fallen out of favor and maybe has kind of fallen behind on innovation, or you have to go with a younger guy and pray that you're making the right decision, and you get a Kevin O'Connell or a Matt LaFleur, and not other members of the Rams staff.
Yeah. If I were to give my guy, there's multiple ways. I would probably, I don't have one specific guy. I think Mike McCarthy is one that I think would probably make me happy in the sense that I struggle right now. And I agree, Evan. I think that it is the battle of, do you want that new guy who has potential, has worked in a staff that has success, that has built up a resume, that has gotten the experience in a coordinator role that has been raved about by multiple head coaches? Or do I want the guy that's done it before? And for me, if it's the guy that has done it before, I think Mike McCarthy's probably the only one that is a former head coach that sounds interesting to me. And the reason why, like I said, he has won at the highest of levels. And I understand his tenure with the Dallas Cowboys didn't turn out great. They still fielded a elite offense. And I know that he can immediately come in, and he's worked with Aaron Rodgers. He's worked with Dak Prescott. I know that I will have no concerns about my offense with Mike McCarthy. And I look at him and I feel that I don't know exactly who he would bring in as a defensive coordinator, but he's been around the block and he has connections. He has ties. That's probably who I would go with. And at this juncture, he's a name, I would say. Yeah.
As like an established, like as far as like established head coaches who have previous experience and have been there before, it's not the worst option.
Yeah.
It's, again, none of these are going to be like, man, that's just the home run hire. You know, none of these are Mike Vrabel to the Patriots, right? Like none of them are like, hey, Mike Vrabel took a gap year while the Patriots just tanked. Like,
and who goes for you?
I'll just stick to my original one from a couple weeks ago when we talked about it with 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Just again, you've presided over MVP years for Lamar. You've done pro and college style offenses at 2 different levels in college. You've designed multiple different offensive schemes. So I know you have versatility to where you don't come in and just be like, oh, I'm a wide zone play action team guy. And then you end up drafting a guy who likes to live and gun. Right. And then you're like, oh, fuck, well, how do I be an offensive coordinator who wants to be in the gun all the time? How do I adapt this? Like, this is a dude who's done it for pro style quarterbacks, running quarterbacks, guys at the lower collegiate level where you get to be more innovative and play around with stuff. But then he's also been at Georgia. He's achieved at the highest levels in college and the NFL. Like, he's a little bit older, so maybe 61. Like, he's just not gotten the opportunity yet. So maybe that's something where the Bengals kind of gravitate toward, hey, you have that maturity. You have a more proven resume to where you've worked with these multiple people. You've worked in these NFL circles versus just being like a passing game coordinator for an NFL team. It's just there's not as much like of the proven play calling aspect as whereas Monken has years of proven play calling.
I agree. Logan.
I think for me, I struggle. I'm never a guy that tends to really go out on a limb and really kind of like argue and fight for guys that have been head coaches before. I always kind of like to try to find some newer guys. It's the same guy, much like Evan that I talked about a couple of weeks ago, Packers offensive coordinator, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, man. This, great offensive line coach he's been their line coach since 2019, and they've produced so many good offensive linemen time and time again. People have been hurt time and time again. Guys move positions one year, play a different position the next, and they're still good. Just having a guy that can maintain that stability up front is something that immediately is super attractive. But then just being around the Packers, being around LaFleur, and doing all these things and have an offense that has been sustainable, has had great quarterbacks, no matter who's in. They have no receivers half the time. They have a bunch of average receivers this year, that year. They never really have the most star power in the world, but their scheme is good year in and year out. Their line play is good year in and year out. It's just a super reliable style of football. They continue to get the most out of, I don't want to say players that aren't talented, but that they overachieve. They overachieve with the guys that they have year in and year out. And I think that is something the Bengals need. Again, I can't sit here and speak to you too much about his personality and doing all these things, but from a pure football perspective, I love what the Packers are doing. I think he's been a big part of it, and I think having a guy like that would always be fun.
All right, so it comes to me. So we all have different names. We have Mike McCarthy, Todd Monken, and then you said 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏.
Yep.
Man, I've got a few names for you guys really quickly that I'm toying with. I'm just going to throw them out. There's going to be some names you probably haven't heard me mention before. But Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich is one for me that I'd consider. I thought he did a fine job with the Jets, dealing with his hands tied behind his back. He had their defense balling still. And you see the way he sort of turned around this Falcons defense too has been just, that's what you look for, especially for a team. It's easy to go with the defensive side of the ball right now because the Bengals need defense. But I also don't want to rob ourselves of potentially getting a home run hire here or a guy that you think could make sense. There's obviously the Joe Brady conversation. I think there's a lot of questions regarding that because I don't know if you wonder how much of the offense is actually him and how much of the offense is actually, him having an MVP caliber quarterback, but it also takes a good offense coordinator to get the most out of that MVP caliber quarterback. And I think he's done a lot of that, especially, let me tell you what the most impressive thing that I think that Joe Brady has done with the Bills offense that we're not talking about. They really don't have a true number one wide receiver. And they're making it work with getting so many weapons involved. I love
how dare you, the 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪 erasure? Wow.
I love the fact how they're able to go under center and marry it together with the shotgun game and just be so, just so offensively different, I would say. They throw so many things at you. That's different. I think that Joe Brady makes me, it piques my interest, to be quite honest with you. You obviously have the Brian Flores conversation because I feel like Brian Flores, a lot of the coaches we're mentioning, you got to realize these coaches are getting paid like $10 million a year, now $8 million a year, $9 million a year. The Bengals are routinely one of the lower paying teams that pay coaches. I feel like Brian Flores meets the opportunity. He's a guy that wants a shot in the National Football League again to be a head coach, to prove he could be a head man. It's an against the grain hire. Owners won't be knocking down the Brian Flores door, especially because the Vikings defense isn't doing good. It almost reminiscent of a Marvin Lewis hire, guys, where you get a really highly sought after defensive coach, and then he coaches a defense again the next year, and the defense isn't as dominant, but it's respectable, it's good, and then he comes in and he completely just shapes the face of the franchise. I feel like Brian Flores would bring a different style of attitude to this Bengals football team being the lead man that they need. I don't know if the media here would like him because he'd be straight to the point. Flores
Wow, what's that like?
Yeah, Flores would be.
I'd appreciate it,
man. I'd appreciate that too. And I honestly, I think people be a little scared of Brian Flores too, like in terms of just what he expects. But I'll be real with you. I think the Bengals will be able to get him at a bargain price because I think he's damaged goods in the NFL's eyes, and I think he's a guy that could still coach at a high level. We've seen him get the most out of a defense that doesn't have the most talent on it, and to me that's interesting. But can I throw a different name at you guys really quickly? Sure. Mike LaFleur, the Rams offensive coordinator. Clint Kubiak was interesting to me. That was a name I was considering. But Mike LaFleur is a guy, well, he comes from the Sean McVay tree, right? His brother is Matt LaFleur. And if you ever turn on the Rams, it's just hard because do you want to do that again? Do you want to poach again from the Sean McVay coaching staff?
I was going to say, you're probably the worst out of Zach Robinson, Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur. Is there anybody else I'm missing from that offensive staff who's gotten the head coach? So you got probably the worst of the four.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't. Jury's still out on Zach Robinson. I don't want to rush to judgment on that. Yeah. We'll see where the Falcons end up. But it definitely helps when you have a guy like Bijan.
For sure.
Feed.
But I like Mike in general. And part of the reason I didn't mention him here is exactly what you're about to talk about. Is a couple of weeks ago when we brought him up, I brought him up, but I don't know if they're going to go back to the same well they kind of went the first time as much as
here's the crazy
I want
thing.
them to.
I think this might sound crazy. For all the praise that Joe Brady gets, I think Mike LaFleur is a better offensive coordinator than him. I think that if you
Mike.
Okay. Mike. No.
Mike.
No, I think Mike's a better offensive coordinator than him. I think that Joe Brady is good, but I think Joe Brady has certain tendencies that I don't love. It's hard to say offense because you feel that Joe Burrow's going to have success with whoever, right, the offensive coordinator is. But at the same time, that's easier said than done. That's easy to say he'll have success no matter who the offensive coordinator is, but they still have to hire the right guy at the offensive coordinator spot, right? You don't want to hire a Bill Lazor who just refuses to run the football. You don't want to do that.
Who doesn't believe in throwing the balls to running backs?
Yes, literally.
I just don't believe in it. What, like the boogeyman? Like you don't like I hate to bring this to your attention, but it is a very real thing. I'm so sorry. Cover your eyes.
I think the guy I settle on, though, out of all those names that I said, because I was even considering the Lions defensive coordinator one for Kelvin Shepard. That was an interesting name for me. I think I settle on Brian Flores, though, guys. I do believe that he'd be able to get in the right offensive guy in here. You don't need someone that can just be game. You need a culture setter. The Bengals need a culture setter, a guy that's going to have the respect. I think he had these Miami Dolphins teams winning, even though I thought sometimes they were devoid of talent. He was still able to put together a winning football team. Let's vote on it, though. You said Todd Monken, you said Adam Stenavich, you said Mike McCarthy. I just don't believe the Bengals have the funds for Mike McCarthy, Daniel. I'll start there.
That's the other appeal of the Todd Monken is it's probably not as expensive as the big name hires.
Yeah. I think Brian Flores probably makes the most sense. Listen, what do we always talk about? The Bengals our Bengals have creatures of habit. What defensive coordinator gave them absolute hell this year? Brian Flores. I mean, there were a few, but Brian Flores gave them hell on the from a defensive standpoint this year, and I just think that Brian Flores makes the most sense. What do we think about these hires? Who do we think we all should go with? Who do we think what's the consensus here?
I support the Flores move.
I've always been very effusive of praise when talking about Brian Flores because, like you said, in Miami and also multiple years in Minnesota, where it has been difficult to name a single defender for people who are like covering the league professionally. Like, don't get me wrong, we pay attention to a lot. Like, we cover the league pretty intensely, but like people who travel with NFL teams as beat writers still were like,
who are these people?
Who? Like, what? So like, that was the level, and they were top 12, top 10 units year over year. And the thing about defense is like so much of the value that you get on defense comes from turnovers, right? Comes from big plays and, third down performance year over year is noisy. It fluctuates. Defensive turnovers year over year are noisy. They fluctuate. Sack numbers are too. That's why people look at things like, pressure rate instead of sacks, because sacks are more valuable, but pressure is a better indicator or predictor. But despite that, and he's been consistent year over year, which is really difficult to do, especially when all the faces are changing. So it's encouraging to have seen him do that with multiple different iterations of poor defenses and still manage to get top 10, top 12 performances out of these, which is incredibly encouraging when you think about what he could do with the Bengals defense, just getting them anywhere near like the 23rd worst defense, the 22nd worst defense, even if you just, kept things the same and maybe added one or two.
Can I tell you something too, man?
No.
Well, hear me out. Let's say if you do go with the Flores hire, right? There's a real chance that maybe the Harbaugh staff in Baltimore might be gone if they don't do well this year. And you might have an opportunity to pick up a Todd Monken as the offensive coordinator. Because you got to think that Brian Flores is going to bring in an established play caller.
Do you think Harbaugh gets bailed out by the Lamar injury? But it wasn't even just that, right? It was Marlon Humphrey. They
were losing before that, though. Right? They were struggling before that.
Yeah, I mean, before
There's
the
a
Lamar
chance
injury, but
somebody
the
on that
offensive
staff is
line's
gone
been in really
regardless.
rough shape too. Like,
somebody will be fired. I don't know for a fact, it could be Monken, and it could be the DC. Like,
it could be Monken. Somebody. I definitely think Zach Orr's gone.
I think it would be. I was going to say, I think it would be the DC before anybody else. I think the offense. It's like, hey, the offensive line is not as good as it has been in years. Like, we believe in the Ravens, and then also like Lamar's been hurt and dealing with something. So like Cooper Rush. Why did they go to Cooper Rush over Tyler Huntley? After what Huntley has been able to do for them previously.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. That was kind of crazy.
Like, Cooper Rush could like not run the offense like at all. Right. Like, how did that? I don't know. That's weird. That was weird to me. Yeah, not trying to help the team.
I think the thing that excites me about a potential Flores hire is the fact that he'd go against the grain. Like, he'd probably not see eye to eye all the time.
Make him try something different.
He would.
At least his defense would play with an edge. At least they'd be aggressive.
And here's the one thing that's hopeful about that. That they're probably going to pick up the phone and they probably would ask around the league. They probably would ask Bill Belichick, how was it with him? And, they obviously have a lot of respect for Bill.
Oh my God, no.
No, I'm just saying it's
and I'm just saying I have Bill, big fan of your work, man. You enjoy retirement. Click.
Retirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, man.
Go just he wants to stand on the sidelines at Navy.
I think
what he wants to do.
I think you'd low-key see. I think you'd be able to see Brian Flores do some weird stuff with Myles Murphy, have him rush from the middle. I mean, I think you'd see him have Brian Flores would probably do some crazy stuff with this defense.
I think he could figure out some interesting stuff to do.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's
take it.
always been the frustrating thing, right? Is like you have these pieces where it's like if you can just teach them to do X, Y, or Z, but again, like regardless of who the defensive line coach has been or who the offensive line coach has been, particularly in the trenches, you just have not been able to hit on these picks and like develop these guys.
Mhm.
Like maybe Flores could try and squeeze a little bit out, but again, like Myles Murphy's at that point where it's like, dude, like, what do you do with the contract? Do you pick up an option? Because like, is he even worth it at that point? Like,
We got Mr. Chris Smith 3 in the comment sections going with what my good friend Benjamin Albright said on Twitter. Brian Benjamin believes that the Bengals would entertain Vance Joseph for obviously a guy that they liked before. I don't know how I don't know.
He was.
he got the opportunity with the Denver Broncos first, right? And
yeah.
it was not just bad; it was like spectacularly bad.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. But Ben's saying like, you know,
Brian Callahan.
like there's like, hey, you know, let's give him like 3 to 4 years, and then we'll fit. Like, it didn't even last that long.
how long was he
2
there
years.
for?
2 years.
He was there for 2 years. What was
I
the
think
record
it was,
there?
yeah.
They had five wins and 5 and 6 wins, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know. That just
Correct me
doesn't
if I'm
attract
right,
me.
but-
Like,
Well, that and I just like. I always bring this up that there is no shame in just being one of the best coordinators in the league.
yeah.
Like just make
Absolutely,
a fucking
dude.
bag.
Absolutely.
Just, hey, I'm
Underrated.
a mercenary for hire. Hey, like,
Underrated.
you know, this coaching staff didn't work out. Like, you know, I'm good at what I do. Like,
How's the
Throw me a
Broncos defense
bag,
doing right
like-
now? It's good.
Good.
well, they've
They said
also been
defensive
dealing with
player of the
injuries,
year,
but yeah, no,
sack
their
leader.
D line is their D line's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
I mean, they another team
Surtain
just
just got hurt.
drafted well. They took Jahdae Barron and they Nick Bonito. Like they
I was gonna say,
signed Zach Allen. They traded for
dude,
John
Zach
Michael
Allen
Franklin.
has been
Like-
going crazy.
Like they've
They
done,
got a lot of talent on that.
They've
defense.
drafted
Yeah.
well inside good for agents.
right.
Yeah, like-
No, it's I understand how like you can make the connections with the dots and be like, hey, there's a guy who can help fix the defense with ties to Cincinnati. And I don't know like how fond the ties are. Like, not that
Yeah.
I think the Bengals like view him like unfavorably,
They
but I don't
blocked him
think
once. They blocked. It was bad blood, actually. I remember.
Yeah.
They blocked him from being promoted once or being interviewed for a job, and he was really upset. He was really annoyed about that. I remember that.
but I just
Yeah.
don't like, oh yeah, the Bengals love Vance Joseph. They love I've never gotten that vibe. So I don't know, man. I just don't see that.
No, for sure, for sure. Huh. That's some interesting stuff to talk about. Hey, anyway, listen, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. Hey, this is one of my new favorite parts of the show. Know thy enemy. So without further ado, I'm gonna let Evan take this one away.
Oh man. Well, just like the Bengals odds of getting into the playoffs and doing anything actually halfway decent, I'm going to keep this short. Tough game against the Bears. And I say that not because the Bears are some sort of juggernaut in the league this year. I want to give them respect. They're definitely a young team that's starting to build, that's in the first year of an offense under new head coach Ben Johnson. And they're definitely going through those growing pains. You can see there's just spots where like there's miscommunications right between DJ Moore and Caleb Williams, and they're still all figuring out. And it's also Caleb Williams' first real year where he's probably properly supported as an NFL quarterback. So not judging too harshly based on all this. So keep that in mind. But because they are a competent NFL team and they're going up against the Bengals Swiss cheese defense, I would expect for a very competitive game from the Bears, and maybe take some overs depending on Joe Flacco's health. We'll see. So without further ado, let's look a little bit closer. Starting with the offense, they are currently ranking 17th in EPA per play, 23rd in success rate, 18th in drop back EPA, and 14th in rushing success rate. Especially after the first couple weeks, you've really seen the run game come alive. Ben Johnson's always obviously schemed up a great run game with Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery in Detroit. Not surprising to see him kind of coax out a career resurgence a little bit from DeAndre Swift. So they've looked very good in their run game and their screen game as well. really interesting kind of how they have their offense kind of split in their roles that they're using. Rome is having an excellent year, looking really, really good with Caleb right now. Being more of their downfield threat. You've got DeAndre and DJ Moore kind of helping with the underneath stuff as well as the tight ends, and occasionally Luther Burden. And that's really kind of just helped them to sustain kind of a little bit of a, not necessarily a dink and dunk offense, because Rome gets an average depth of target of 14.1, which ranks 12th among receivers. But more so just to say they have very defined roles in this offense as they kind of feel things out, get more comfortable, start to develop some of these younger guys and get them more used to playing in the league as well as playing together and getting more acquainted with the system that they're in now. Caleb Williams, in terms of his production so far this year, like I said, this is kind of his redshirt freshman year, so to speak. Last year, we know the Bears' struggles were many, let's just say, and plenty of the reporting coming out in the offseason being that Caleb Williams was not properly supported, was not, really being helped to watch film and prepare for games properly. You've seen some areas of improvement. He's still 22nd out of 30 quarterbacks in PFF grade, and his completion percentage is 3.4% below expectation, which ranks 29th out of 34 quarterbacks. But he does have the 11th best big-time throw percentage this season, which is encouraging, although that does come with the 8th worst turnover-worthy play percentage. Something that you could definitely expect from a younger kind of rookie-ish quarterback. But the big-time throw percentage is definitely very encouraging. And the accuracy, consistency issues with Caleb Williams are something that's, kind of been sticking around with him a little bit. And I think as he settles in a little bit, gets more comfortable with the offense, there's some injuries to their offensive line right now. But overall, I think as he gets a little bit more comfortable, you might see him settle down and kind of improve on those mechanics, have more faith in the offense, trusting receivers to be on the same page and kind of maybe throw people open a little bit. Although with the arm that Caleb Williams has, he has the Josh Allen effect of where you don't have to be early to a wide receiver. You can just throw the ball super hard and super fast and it'll get there. He's got one of those cannons. But yeah, overall, he's looking playable, which is a different story from last year. So I want to make sure that we are giving him credit as he is on a slight upward trajectory right now, hoping that he continues to develop well and he and Ben Johnson can find success over there in the NFC away from the Bengals. Looking at DeAndre Swift, just kind of touch on his numbers real quick. I talked about kind of a career resurgence from him after being cast off, and ironically enough, with the Detroit Lions at one time. I remember there being a whole stink and fuss about how he didn't practice hard and took days off and had migraines inconveniently, but seems to be doing all right down there, over there. Let's just say west of Cincinnati over there in Chicago. Yeah. So he's 13th in yards per attempt so far this season. Really impressive there. He has 17 runs of 10 plus yards, which ranks 5th among running backs. And he's been very effective in the receiving game, especially on the checkdowns and in the screen game, averaging 1.52 yards per route run, which ranks 9th among running backs. And I want to give credit to Ben Johnson on this and, a little bit DeAndre Swift for sure. But also you can see when you look at, he only has 11 missed tackles forced, which ranks 28th out of 34 running backs. And so what that tells you is that DeAndre Swift is not necessarily creating these looks by himself. This is a lot of scheme and kind of designed yardage that are coming his way, but he is making the most of his opportunities. So credit where credit's due there. Luther Burden is battling a concussion right now and may not be able to play for this game. And he oftentimes can kind of come in and be their underneath screen guy. We're not going to be talking bets so much as a lot of the lines are not out just yet. But if I was looking at that with Luther Burden out, I would definitely look at like DeAndre Swift or DJ Moore as their receptions props, because they are going to fill that kind of like voided underneath role, or just pick up a little bit more of that role from Luther Burden if he's out. DJ Moore is currently 5th in yards after the catch per reception, and he's got a average depth of target of only 9.1, which is fairly low among receivers. He's just been a lot more of the underneath screen guy and kind of that kind of safety blanket as Rome works the patterns downfield and kind of does more of that traditional X receiver stuff. So yeah, that's definitely something I would be considering. 𝗦𝗣𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗓 has kind of ascended to the wide receiver 1 role on this team, in my opinion. DJ Moore, like I said, has been reliable and a very good option, especially in the screen game. But 𝗦𝗦𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗓 has just been killing it downfield in his second year. 15.3 yards per reception, 5 touchdowns, which ranks 8th among wide receivers. And like I said before, 14.1 average depth of target, which ranks 12th, which just lends itself to how impressive he's been, because these downfield routes and shots are much harder to produce on because they are much more high variance. So he has just really been impressive. And especially when you consider Caleb Williams being 3.5 points below expectation on completions, and kind of just having accuracy and on target issues. Even the completed passes with Caleb, for the Joe Burrow fans, part of what makes him so great, his superpower is his ball placement. We know that on the back shoulders, leading receivers for yards after the catch opportunities, protecting them from defenders. That is something that Caleb Williams still has yet to kind of find the feel for. So you see even some of these completions on like in breakers, like the ball will come a little bit behind them or just right on their hip instead of being out in front of them. I think that just lends itself to make it more impressive, the production that 𝗦𝗦𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗓 has been able to manage this year. So want to give him his flowers. I think he could definitely be in store for a big game, depending on if DJ Turner can give him the Drago treatment, I guess. Looking at the offensive line, Joe Thuney, free agent anchor on the offensive line, that has paid off massively. He's currently 2nd among all guards in pass blocking grade. Darnell Wright, a tackle that many Bengals fans are familiar with too, currently ranks 22nd of 79 tackles in PFF grade. So well above average, sitting in kind of that top quartile. Like those are 2 good offensive linemen there for the Bears that have kind of helped them stabilize their offense a little bit more and be able to rely on this run game, as is the performance from Drew Dahlman, who's been a really, really good center for them as well. The other 2 that they've got filling in right now, Theo Benedict Benedette is filling in right now in lieu of injury. And then Jonah Jackson, another free agent signing that they've had, has not been as resounding a success as Joe Thuney does, sitting right around 55 grade overall with PFF right now. So if you're looking for weaker points on the Bears offensive line right now, right guard and left tackle would be that. Be a great game to have a healthy Trey Hendrickson. Anyways, looking over at the defense, overall, they're dealing with a lot of injuries right now. Dominique Robinson also did not practice this week, already on the Wednesday report. Looks like Tyreek Stevenson did get in a limited practice, so that'll be good for him. But they are dealing with quite a few injuries. I think it's like 3 or 4 plus defensive backs plus 3 defensive linemen right now are all dealing with injuries. So it's tough to put too much stock into what they have going on defense right now, because you don't necessarily know everyone who will be on the field come the Bengals game. But just overall, looking at their defensive numbers that they've been managed to accrue as a team on the season, they are 19th in EPA per play, 29th in overall success rate, 19th in drop back EPA, and 14th in rush EPA. And a lot of this has kind of come as a byproduct of all the injuries. The secondary has not been good. The pass rush has had its moments. Montez Sweat, Javon Dexter, Grady Jarrett. There are much worse defensive lines in the league, and I think the Bengals might have one of them. But it definitely, there's going to be opportunities for the Bengals against this defense. the question is, are they going to be able to take advantage of them? And is the Bengals defense going to be able to generate enough pressure? Sorry, don't mean to touch on raw spots for Bengals fans right now. But this is a Bears offense that scored almost 25 points in every single game. So you are going to have probably a high scoring affair coming from them. I don't believe the Bengals defense are going to hold them below their average per game. So I think that you are going to need to try and take advantage of just the injuries right now, that they are decimated, and you're going to have to find ways to generate turnovers. If we look at the games that the Bengals win, it's because they were able to generate turnovers and win the turnover battle. And credit to Joe Flacco. I have said this and I still maintain and stand by it, that you're not going to be able to continue to play with a guy who's had a very career high kind of overall turnover worthy play rate. He's got 0 turnover worthy plays so far, and that's only going to hold for so long. So as soon as the turnovers start coming back from the offense, because you're not going to play a perfectly clean game every single time, you're going to have to force these opportunities from Caleb Williams. So if we are talking about opportunities and how the Bengals can win this game, not necessarily do you have to pressure Caleb Williams. Yes, you want to try and get to him as much as you can, but out of his 9 turnover-worthy plays, 5 have come when he was clean in the pocket. So those opportunities are going to present themselves just by the nature of having a younger quarterback who is a little inexperienced and in a new offensive system. Hopefully, Jordan Battle, DJ Turner, Dax Hill can pick up some of these maybe errant, inaccurate throws or poor decisions and try and give the Bengals offense a little bit of a chance. When I look at the Bears defense, you're pretty much just going to have to try and take advantage of this weakened and injured secondary. And fortunately, the Bengals do have the horses to make that happen. But as we talked about earlier, if you're going to encounter problems where I bet the Bears are looking at that film from the Jets game and going, hey, okay, on third downs, we can just every third down, if we just bracket Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins, we got a pretty dang good shot of forcing an incompletion or forcing a tough throw, or at least making them go somewhere that they don't want to do. So I think they need to have an answer outside of T. Higgins, outside of Ja'Marr Chase, whether that's Chase Brown, whether that's Noah Fant, whether that's, God forbid, Tanner Hudson or something like that. I think you need to have a very intentional plan, because I think it would be foolish to assume that the Bears are not looking at that going, Ja'Marr Chase just torched the Steelers and torched the Jets for 2.5 quarters. And then look what happened. Suddenly they couldn't operate the offense as soon as you started doubling up and they had to rely on Yoshivas. Hey, I'd rather have 8 targets to Yoshivas than 17 to Ja'Marr Chase. Okay, well, we'll opt for that. So I think you will see more of that, especially if Jake Browning is in. But hopefully the run game thing that they've had is not a mirage, that they will be able to lean on that a little bit, that they'll be able to continue to kind of utilize these package plays where they just kind of have pre-snap reads built in for Joe Flacco, where he can try and make the defense wrong every single time. That's how you're going to find consistent offense. And I really think that's going to be the big thing, is even if you're not getting touchdowns, this could definitely be one of those games where going down and getting field goals can end up being the difference in the game when you do get the occasional touchdown, hopefully too, because the Bears offense has had great explosive plays to Rome Odunze, to DeAndre Swift. Like I said, the 10+ yard runs, he's top 5 in the league. But that is definitely the reason that they haven't been so successful on offense, despite those explosive plays, is because they have more of those 3 and outs, or they get in the red zone and then they take a sack, or they have a holding penalty and then they have to settle for a field goal, or they take them out of field goal range with that. So consistency is definitely an issue for the Bears offense. And if I had to say, it's probably the biggest weak point, that overall you have good players, you have a good scheme, but you do have a sort of rookie quarterback in a new scheme and who has general consistency accuracy issues. So that will lend itself to hopefully some fortunate breaks for the Bengals, and hopefully they can capitalize on the errant opportunities that are presented to them. that was a long one. Thank you all for letting me do my spiel. Thank you for paying attention to Know Thy Enemy. And like I said, next week we might look at the enemy from within a little bit.
The enemy from within. That'll be a name to definitely call it. Guys, listen, there was a lot to unpack from that loss to the Jets. And I think that we're all still, in a lot of ways, still trying to unpack everything that took place. And I'll be sure to make sure I touch on that on the morning show tomorrow. Again, Sit Down Morning Show is live every single Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So we'll be live tomorrow with our guy Tim as we get you guys all geared up for Thursday Night Football and giving you our best bets. And then we'll be live on Friday for our fantasy football content. But again, we have content coming out on the channel each and every single day. So make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. I'm going to go put some what do you call it? Vicks rub on my nose to try to get myself right. I'm battling a little bit of the flu right now, but you know what? I'm gonna bounce back. I'm gonna be here and sitting in this chair and with this mic in front of my face with you guys as often as I possibly can. But I greatly appreciate the entire team. Greatly appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys again give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, Hoo Day.
That's all they ever